All right, welcome back. Episode 7 of the Foreign Inside Podcast. I'm Mike Obi.
Nick Washington.
Thank y'all for tuning in. What's up with you?
All right, man. I see you rocking the Drew Brees jersey, man.
Psych, this is Reggie Bush, bro. No way. I mean,
Nah,
it's funny because he just, dealt with a little bit of what we're about to talk about today, money. Yeah, you know what I mean. So I had to come out and represent him. He's one of the few guys who got me into watching football. So had
oh,
to,
he a legend for sure. He a
huh?
legend. I said he a legend for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. But let's get into it. So today, the topic of money, financial literacy is something that uh, is a big factor amongst our generation. A lot of people don't have it for the most part. Part of it is a systematic thing. People learn about money late in life, and so when they use these platforms to educate them a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
First thing is financial literacy is defined by Investopedia.com as the possession of the set of skills and knowledge that allows an individual to make informed decisions and effective decisions about their finances. So when you hear that term, what does that tell you?
Um, Me basically is just understanding your finances, understanding your money, understand where your money's going, how it's being, allocated to different things, whatever you're using it for. Um, and is just having an understanding and a knowledge of your money and how you can use that to reach your goals or pay off debt or whatever your goal is how to understand your money and then how to use it to your benefit. You know what I'm saying?
hmm And I think the main thing that a lot of people don't understand until it's too late, or for me, I know one thing I wish I would have understood sooner was the idea of I don't have to work for my money. My money can work for me. You know what I'm saying? Money is this asset and this tangible item that people strive and bust their asses for every single day of life. They go to school and they work to earn it, but then they don't really understand how it benefits them other than the fact that they can go out and buy stuff. You can also invest it, you can budget it, and then use it to, uh, you know, purchase way greater things than just food or water or toiletries.
Yeah.
So one thing, talking to my older sister, one thing she talked about, because she has a background in finance, is the idea that people don't budget or they don't track their spending as much. So
Mm.
what do you think um, is a reason of why people don't budget or track spending?
I think that people think it's harder than it actually is. I think they think that, oh, it's gonna be too hard for me to track how I spend my money and keep up with how my money is spent. But I mean, the age that we're in now, there's apps out there that'll do it for you. So yeah, people think it's harder than it actually is. It really isn't that hard. But you initially you have to take that time to kind of budget out and really understand your finances. But then after it's kind of that initial um, analysis, I guess you want to say, is done, then it's pretty smooth sailing.
Yeah, and I mean, so luckily, Investopedia also gives you steps, especially for people who are new to it. So, I mean, first off, you can budget your money whenever you want. You don't have to be an adult. You can do it to a kid, who gets an allowance, or when you're 16 and you get your first job, you can start budgeting money, you know, even then. And I think what happens a lot of times is, people begin working and that's the first time they've ever had access to money. And so the first thing is, oh, I have the ability to go out and buy the things that I want. I can go buy that new skateboard, that new video game, that new bag, that new watch, those new shoes that I never could afford and I had to ask my mom or dad for. And then
Mhm.
what happens then is that they end up wasting it, or they save up all of their money to go off and then they blow it on that one thing that they wanted, rather than saying, okay, if I budget a little bit here, 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 and here, I might have to wait to get that new thing that I wanted, but I can just wait a little bit longer, buy what I want, and still have a little bit of money left over, right?
Yeah,
So some of the steps that you could take really is just to calculate your expenses, right? And then understand what you're spending per month. Determine your income, so how much you make. Set a savings and a debt payoff goals for people who are adults, right? Who maybe you have debt to pay off from school or from any type of loan you had to take out for your house. And then you
mhm,
have to just be realistic with your spending. Like, if I know I can't afford to buy that thing right now, I'm not gonna go into debt trying to get it now if I don't need to. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
I think that's one thing also that people kind of, are a little bit short sighted with. Is just, well, money's money. Money can be replaced and everything. Money can be expensive and it can hinder you and it can cost you your livelihood just as easily as it can help you. So,
yeah, definitely.
for me, that's one thing my older sisters taught me, my older brothers taught me, my parents taught me, that, like, make sure that you're not having to work for your money's working for you, and that you're not putting yourself in a position where you having to owe anybody anything if you
Yeah,
don't.
yeah,
So
yeah.
now talking about owing people money, we're gonna go into debt, right? So
Mhm.
when we hear the word debt, what does it entail in your opinion?
Uh, it's money you owe, basically. Just in layman's terms, money you owe.
Right.
Yeah,
And money you owe, and debt isn't just debt that you have because you have a negative in your bank account. You can accumulate debt through credit, through loans, through mortgages on a house, which you yourself, you have a mortgage, you're dealing with that type of thing. And
mhm,
also taxes, medical bills. So when you go to the hospital, a lot of people don't know, you get into debt because the hospital charges you a huge sum, whether it was an emergency or not, as well as government debt that you might accumulate.
mhm.
So going into your background now, I know you're dealing with real estate now. Talk about what that has been like and understanding, just real estate debt and money dealing with that realm.
So basically, you have to have X amount of money to go into a well. It's a whole long story, but I'm trying to shorten it. So basically, having a plan for a property or a value add type of deal. You see a place where you can add value by adding, you know, new paint, new appliances, whatever. Let's just say it's apartment complex. I see apartment complex, and I think that it's not being the rent isn't at where it could be for its area. And I think that the property needs some fixing up. So I go in and I have a plan, and I can go into a bank and say, I have X amount of dollars to put down on this property.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my plan. Once I do the paint, new appliances, maybe, refinish the pool, add a gym, then I can charge X amount of, I can up the rent from $1,000 to, I don't know, $1,500, $1,700, and it's going to bring me X amount over this year. And then over 10 years or whatever, it'll bring me this much. So then the bank will look at that and say, okay, so we'll give you based off of that, we'll give you a loan for this amount. So
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be in debt to the bank for whatever amount that they loan you, but that money is used to add value to that property. So then if you add value to that property, then that property is asset, evaluation goes up. So then you can either keep it and over time pay that loan back every month
Mm-hmm.
off of whatever you're making, or you can take it and let's just say the property was worth $1 million um, when I bought it, and now it's worth $3 million. So then I take my profits, then I break off the piece that I owe the bank plus their little interest, and then the rest is profit for me to move on to the next property. And if you make a positive, if you make a positive return on your money and on the bank's loan, then they're going to be more willing to give you, a higher loan or better rate or better interest rate and stuff like that. So it's all about, your first deal, they might not give you a favorable interest rate just because you haven't proven yourself. But as you prove yourself, the more money they're going to be willing to give you and at a better rate for the most part. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. Very good. And so then, like, I know as far as like dealing with loans and just stuff like that as far as schooling is concerned. You know, I never had to take out loans, but that was because I made the decision whenever I got out of high school to, look into stuff like junior college, right?
Yeah.
So I remember when I first got out, I was looking at, okay, man, I got to go to the 4 year university. I was trying to get out of I was trying to get out of the house, and I didn't care nothing about how much college tuition was. I knew what it was, but I was like, man, F all that. I'm trying to get to this 4 year, right? And my mom and my dad sat me down, and the way they explained it was very humbling and realistic. They were like, look, you didn't get a scholarship, playing football. At least you didn't get a full ride. All
Mm.
right. So that's out the question, right? You had a couple academic scholarships, but the bottom line is that you can either stay in stay in town. You can go to this little JUCO, right? If you go to this JUCO, the tuition of what you would have paid going to the 4 year university, it would be probably a fraction, maybe like for instance, I think the tuition that I paid at my junior college was 2,000 per semester. If I had decided to go to any of the 4 years that I got into, it'd have been 8,000 at least per semester, and that's tuition alone. So we're not even talking about room and board, which are all the separate fees, plus books, um, plus all amenities that you have to also pay on top of it. And they make you buy their textbooks, they make you buy their access codes, and if you don't, then you can't take certain portions of the course that are vital to your final overall grade, right? So I decided to make the decision to just stay in Houston and just do 2 years of junior college, right? So I didn't get the college feel, but that was an invest. That was a decision financially I had to make because now I look at it. I finished my 4 year degree, and because I took those 2 years to stay in school, plus the help of my family, and just being smart with my money as far as buying the right textbooks. Also in JUCO, they don't care nothing about where you get the knowledge, as long as it's accurate to their um, textbook need, and as long as it's a relatable model. I was also able to find cheaper textbooks, and then, long story short, I finished my undergrad with no debt, right? So, which is unheard of amongst most of my peers these days, right? So it takes just being aware and kind of weighing the cost risk analysis. Okay, I could have decided to be hard headed and say, nope, F everything. I'm going to the 4 year and nobody can stop me. And then I'd be swimming in debt right now, trying to pay off undergrad. And then I'm trying to go back to school. And then that's just more money I'm accumulating. So then even if like I finish my master's and I'm making good money, but then I'm owing the banks all this bread that I got to pay off over 10 more years. I don't want to have to live with that on my conscience. So, all right, cool. Next thing is just understanding time value of money. I know me and you talked about it before. Just talk about first off what you think of when you hear that phrase.
It's basically like your dollar today can be worth more. What is it? Your dollar today can be worth more today than to you than it will be tomorrow.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Because if I give you $1 today, you can take that dollar and buy something that'll be worth $5 tomorrow,
Facts.
rather than you waiting to get that dollar, and then you get the dollar, but then you'd have missed out on your chance to buy that asset or whatever that could have been worth $5 today. You know what I'm saying? So it's basically just like your money is worth more today, so you can use that dollar or that X amount of money to grow. And a savings account that has like the little savings account that give you a percentage back over however many years or whatever,
Yeah,
or
like
and investing into a stock or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Rather than just waiting, having that deferred payment of getting your money, you know what I'm saying?
yeah, and like with savings accounts, they compound interest. Like that's the main term that gets associated with having a savings account. You put it in there and you don't touch it. and then the money just accumulates over time and over time and over time. And then you look at it, it's like, well, this $2,000 that I put in my bank account to save ends up being 2,500. Let's say you made a net profit of $500, and then investing stocks, that's a big thing today. A lot of people have profited from it. I mean, basically stocks is you're taking basically your money and you're investing in companies, and you're banking and you're predicting the profitability of that company's viability basically over time. So an example would be if I were to, let's say, invest in Zoom.com, for example, and I buy a share at maybe $50, right? And then I have that now share, I have this stock, and then all of a sudden I find out through watching the market that now Zoom sells at $500. Oh shit, sell my stock, and then I net 450 on it. And so
Yeah.
just accumulating wealth through that means is another way for people to understand time value of money. Have money at one period of time, at one point in time. You decide to invest it, you decide to buy something, you hold it, and then over time, as either a company or a certain entity starts to gain value, you now have a greater amount of money that you can now accumulate through just patience.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely think that people should take their money and put it into things that'll bring them more money, rather than letting it sitting in your account. But I also think that people should have emergency funds. Like it,
Absolutely.
don't start making some money then think you got to go and start investing it. Take your money for a year or two maybe and just save it. You know what I'm saying? Build up, pay off all bad debt that you got. um, you know build your credit score in any way you can and save. That's what I would say for about 2 to 3 years, before you start trying to jump into investing your money. you know
Yeah, I agree because like for me, I remember when I switched banks, the first thing the bankers asked me about was, "Do you want to get a credit card?" Right? And I'm like, I don't. I mean, I know what having a credit score is. I know what credit is, but do I really want to, get into now accumulating a credit card? And see, a lot of times people make the short-sighted like, "Oh, let me just get a credit card," because I hear that with a credit card, you don't have to pay it back all at this time. Like you can pay it back later, right? Then
yeah.
that's how they get you because it's like, oh, you don't understand that with this credit card, there's interest rates, and if you don't pay back the amounts in time, then that interest rate balloons, and then that messes with your credit score. That also puts you at risk with your assets because now you're not paying back your bills in time.
Yeah.
So it's just understanding that if you're going to get into anything, first off, make sure that all the stuff that you need to pay off is covered before you look into trying to make money off of the money that you have saved up or that you have accumulated. You don't want to have to be owing people stuff and then try to take on new risky endeavors only to now lose out on everything. And then
Mhm.
that's how people go broke. I know a few people where it's like, oh, there's possibly this business endeavor that I can get into because I'm not an athlete, let's say. And then, they don't really understand that, well, yeah, I made this sum of money and I can put this much down, like let's say 1,000 down, and then I'll put maybe 500 down in the bank, but then I have student loans that I didn't pay off. I'll just pay that off monthly off of that 500. Then let's say the business endeavor crashes, right? And then now you lost out on that 1,000. Then let's say coronavirus happens. Now
Yeah.
you only now you only got 500 left in the bank uh, to get you through it. And now you
Yeah.
got to look into, okay, maybe I got to go move back home with my people. You now have less autonomy as far as life is concerned. And now you're stuck being a child again and having to live under somebody else's roof after you were thinking that you made the high life, whatever. You know what I'm saying? And then also, especially when it comes to athletes, right now, a big thing in the NBA is like, they didn't reach the certain amount of games necessary to play over a season. So now the league is looking at taking a little bit of their money away. Well, not every player in the NBA makes what LeBron James or Kawhi Leonard makes, right? So it's like there are certain players who live check to check and never learn how to manage money. If you have learned it, either in college or if you've been smart with it, then coronavirus wouldn't have been a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it happens all the time. People make a little money, then they go out and buy a Mercedes and they go buy high rise apartment, and then, market crashes, they lose their job or something. Then there goes the Mercedes. They moving back in with their parents. And by this time they 35 years old, and
And
it's tough, man.
their credit score is bad. They have a whole lot of interest. Now they can't get a loan to buy a house or to put
Yeah.
down a mortgage, or when they want to go buy even a regular car, it's like, nope, sorry, we're going to charge you a high interest rate because you've not shown yourself to be responsible with money.
Yeah. At that point, you better off just buying a cash card, because they just gonna hit you with something stupid.
What's a cash card for people who don't know?
You show up. I want that Honda Accord, and they sell for $1,000. You show up with $1,000 in your hand, they pay it. Sometimes they'll sign it over to you. It just depends on where you go, and the car is yours. And then and most of the time those cars are gonna have issues,
Absolutely.
but hopefully it can just get you from point A to point B, and then when it dies, then you go buy another one. You take another $1,000 and you go buy another car, and that's just how it works.
Man, and having those cash cards really are gonna cost you a lot of money, and just like you said, maintaining it. And I gotta always bring it into the shop because check engine light's on, the tire light's on, or this light is on, or it's bad on gas, or it overheats. So
A lot of people have to deal with it, though. So
facts. I mean, I can just say that I'm lucky and I'm blessed that I haven't had to deal with nothing too extreme as of yet in life, because I've had a lot of people kind of steer me away from making bad investments or making bad money choices, and just being self-aware and trying to seek out the knowledge, because there's not everybody has the same tools and accessibility to them, and so some people have to learn and some people have to learn too late. There's a lot of things that I wish I would have learned if when I was younger about money, but there's always a chance to learn.
yeah.
Going into it now, uh, investing a little bit deeper. So there are four types of investings. We've already touched on real estate, stocks, but there's also self-investment and self-endeavor. So like, self-investment in terms of that, where what do you think of when you hear self-investment or self-endeavor?
Investing into your education doesn't have to be like a formal education like school. It can be a certificate or license class, or even apprenticeships and stuff like that. It's just somehow investing into you learning something, basically.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know a lot of times when I hear self-investment, I think of trade schools, right? Like you talk about, or like even just getting licenseships, like, I mean, personal training, that's a big thing, right?
Yeah.
You guys go to personal training school to get that certificate that says that they're licensed now. They can literally go and make as much money as they want, and that's not taxable, I don't think. So therefore, that's just easy, not easy, but straight bread that they're getting, and they
Yeah,
can charge what they want.
they're gonna file their taxes, but there's a way to. I don't know if I can. I ain't gonna say it on camera, but there's a way to.
Let us get us shut down, brother. But I mean, just stuff like that though. Like even like those things, a lot of people don't know about, or like, I mean, even deciding to invest in nutritionists for people who happen to be overweight or out of shape, or who aren't okay with the way they look today. They can decide, okay, I'll invest in getting this personal trainer or this nutritionist, or um, this item that can help me with my health. I know a big thing nowadays is like mental health, right? So downloading stuff like the Calm app, the Headspace app, that you might have to pay a little bit of a premium for certain subscription plans, but it helps you meditate, especially with the day and age that we're living in. You know, Corona, um, lack of patience just in life in general. People's headspace is very vital to them, and so making the investment in terms of those types of things could be something that you put a little bit of your money that you accumulate towards, as opposed to putting it towards, you know, unnecessary things or undesirable things. And so I think self investment is a big thing nowadays, and it's very key to me. And one thing I try to, stress to people who I mentor is like, you have to invest in yourself if you want other people to, if you want other people to invest in you, and you're helping yourself in the long run.
Yeah, you are. You are.
You feel me?
It's that initial investment up front that a lot of people hesitate on, is that they're scared to pay that, let's say $3,000 up front for a licensing course, but not realizing that that licensing course after you finish it can make you $10,000. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah. And the last realm we're gonna get into for the episode is just money in terms of school. Um, you know, I know for me, I understood when I got out of high school again, it's just like there was FAFSA and you know, there was educational scholarships, but I didn't really understand even really what FAFSA was. I just kind of knew that that was something you applied for. And then after the fact, I started to understand like, oh, okay, it's more than just the application for money. Like there's way more complexities to it. And so as I started getting older and as I started having siblings and like my cousins and even some other friends who were younger than us who started to finish high school, they're like, what's a FAFSA? Like they didn't know. And so
yeah,
then I had to look into it for them. Like I would be like, well, it's this. So, for the young people who are getting out of high school, first off, a FAFSA is termed the free application for federal student aid. So it's how you get your student aid paid for or given to you, dispersed to you, right? The main thing that you have to understand when it comes to FAFSA is there's two ways that you get money. You can either get it through a grant or through a loan, like we talked about, right? So with the loan, the difference between those two is that with the loan, you have to pay back that money later on in life. With the grant, you don't, right? So what's the pros and the cons versus the two? With the grant, there's less money per grant and those things are limited.
yeah,
So for example, I knew certain people where the reasons they were able to go off to university was because they got a grant for about $3,000, which $3,000 covered half of their tuition, which means that their parents could now focus on simply room and board and things of that nature, right? Because
yeah,
they're able to qualify for it, right? But the problem is that, like you said, not everybody gets a grant, not everybody qualifies for it. So you can go the loan route. The good thing about loans is that they're unlimited, right?
mhm,
And there's also a higher degree of money that goes into a like you can get more money from loans and you can get more of them, right? You just have to be careful. And this is the one thing they don't tell you really in fast unless you read into it, is that loans interest rate, first off, there's two types. There's a subsidized and there's unsubsidized loans. Through
mhm,
FAFSA, you mainly are going to get unsubsidized loans, which basically means that that principal, when you get out of college, you can defer it. So if you don't pay all of that loan off by the time your 4 years are finished,
mhm,
it just adds on at the end of your undergrad. So like, let's say I take out a loan for $15,000 over the 4 years of college, right? And then let's say I only pay back 10,000 of that 15,000, right? So I have 5,000 left that gets deferred to the end of my college career. When
mhm,
I graduate, I not only have to pay that off, but because it's an unsubsidized loan, you have to pay a principal back onto that loan, which basically means it accumulates interest. And people don't know that, and people don't learn that. And so then they're looking at it, they're like, oh, I just have $5,000 worth of debt. No, you have possibly $7,500 to $10,000 worth of debt because every loan is different. Every loan has a different interest rate.
Mhm.
So when people look at getting loans, they have to really look into what their loan entails and what's the interest rate. Because interest rate, if anything else, that's the part that gets people. Is
Yeah.
not understanding, okay, what is this loan? It's not just simply, okay, I'm getting school covered and that's just what it is, and I'll pay it back later. You have to
Yeah.
know how much you're really going to be paying back at the end of it all.
Yeah. No, a lot of people forget about the interest. Like
Hmm.
anybody can walk into a bank or anywhere and get money. You know what I'm saying? Like getting money isn't the hard part. It's just the terms that come along with that money is what a lot of people tend to overlook. So
Yeah, and I mean, also too, uh, you know, when it comes to loans versus grants, where you get them from also is different. Like a grant, you is paid for through government agencies and through nonprofit, organizations, right? A loan you have to get strictly through the bank, right? So, why that matters is that if you happen to go to, like, let's say a nonprofit org that only gives out maybe 3 or 4 grants a year, you might
mhm.
not have as likely of a chance to get it from maybe a smaller known, grant organization that gives out more grants. They may not give out as much money, but they give out more of the grants. So you have to really kind of look into, okay, is it better for me to try to get this grant that may not give out as many, or should I try to get maybe five of these $1,000 grants as opposed to going for this one $5,000 grant that only gives out for a year? Those are the
Mhm.
type of things you look into. As far as like getting out of FAFSA now, I know educational scholarships is another thing that I wish I'd have known more about when I was in high school. I didn't learn about them until my senior year. Um, and with educational scholarships, really it just depends on your GPA. A lot of times, it's like if I make a 3.5, there's all these different little scholarships that I'm eligible for. And I think what turns a lot of students off to them is the fact that they don't make as much. There's not as much money in them a lot of times. There are some that pay you a big sum, um, but you have to do a lot of steps and you have to have a lot of qualifications for them. But if
Yeah.
you if you meet them all, you have a big payoff in the end, and that's how a lot of kids can get school paid for, and they can do whatever they want. Plus, they have a little pocket change, right? And a lot of people just don't know, and that's why we hop on this platform to inform people.
Mhm.
Um, but just getting your take on grants, loans, you know, scholarships. What do you think about the whole thing? And like, have you ever experienced anything that you want to share?
I mean, so far I haven't. Uh, just I've been able to kind of pay for school out of pocket,
Hmm.
but I know for my sister, like my sister has, um, you know, debt from loans and stuff already, and I mean, I don't know too much. Like I said, I don't know too much about it just because I've usually paid out of pocket for my school.
Hmm.
Uh, but
That out of pocket, did you get it through working, or how did you accumulate it? The out of pocket fund.
through working and then taking, really, it was just through working, then taking the money that I was working and like that I was making from working
Hmm.
and investing it. You know, I was doing some trading, so that was bringing back, X amount. Um, you know, loans to other people. I was, loaning some other people some money, and then they were giving me money back plus interest. But that was kind of risky. Sometimes you got to go collect. But I was trying to find just different ways to make money. So if I was, when I was working at Sawmill,
Hmm.
uh, I was doing that. Then I was, doing software on the side. Then I was, on the weekend, if a friend of mine's, grandpa needed his grass cut, go cut his grass. It's little money that adds up, in the long run that you can take and compound your money. That's really just all it is. And then when it's time to go back to school, I'm gonna pay, just as it goes on, make a payment plan and pay the school straight up.
Yeah.
But a lot of people didn't like to do that because then it's like, oh, I might have made, let's just say over the summer, I worked at a job and I was doing side hustle or whatever. And then I was making, at the end of the summer, I made $15,000. Now I'm going to school and my first semester is going to be $8,000.
Yeah.
Want to pay it. They rather have that $15,000 in their bank account. But
Back.
like you can do that. But me personally, I'd rather just go ahead and pay it. I might not have as much money as I had in my bank account, but I know that once I'm done, I won't have to worry about that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, yeah. So it just depends. Everybody doesn't have to do it, but in my opinion, I think that you should just go ahead and pay it if you can up front. I think that for a lot of people, community college or like a junior college is a route that a lot of people should go. If you're not getting a full ride or like a good amount of your tuition going to be paid or something beneficial,
Mm-hmm.
then I think that you should go to community college. I think that if you can in high school, take dual credit classes
That's
and,
good.
and take advantage of that. So then if you get your dual credit and then you can go, and if you have X amount of credits, then you can go to junior college and you can finish with your associates in 1 year. And then you can, in all this time, you can be saving money. So then if you really want to go off to college, if I really want to go off to college in California, this time I could be saving money so that when I do go off to college in California, I won't be putting myself in debt while I'm living in California, going to school, finishing off my 4-year degree. So it's just a lot of things that people kind of have to plan out and know. But I think that kind of falls back on the school system because they don't teach you that type of stuff. But
Yeah, as far as dual credits and everything. All like first off, paying money out of pocket. Like people, I've known people who decided that I'm not going to school because I don't want to pay the tuition right now, or I just can't afford it, right? And I don't want to take out loans, right? So then they decide, school come later, let me work and accumulate the money. That there's nothing wrong with that route. And
yeah,
to some people it's smarter. You know what I'm saying? You first off gain work experience, which when you get out of college, a lot of time I'm dealing with this now. You get out of college and then you're applying for jobs. If your job isn't a professional degree that enables you to get something right off the bat, right? So then you're looking, and then a lot of these jobs are like, oh, you don't have enough experience. Well, I mean, I don't want to see how I was supposed to have 5 years worth of experience when I was in school trying to finish my degree, you know.
yeah,
But they don't tell you that. So then people are like, no, I'll go get the experience in the field doing whatever I have to do, and then I'll accumulate that money, and then I'll go and finish my degree, and then I'll have the experience plus the money saved up plus the education, right? Um,
mm-hmm.
I knew a person I grew up with who, like you said, the whole dual credit route. She took dual credits her junior and senior year of high school, and then in
Mm-hmm.
the summer she would take classes online, like through either a community college. She takes some type of summer school, and so by the time she was done with, she went to college preparatory school as well. So by the time she was done with her senior year, she basically was already done with her first 2 years of undergrad, or if not done with her first 2 years. I mean, I think she had to like take like 1 or 2 electives for like her last 2 years. Bottom line, she finished her degree in basically I think 2.5 years, and she was like done with her undergrad and had no debt, had a surplus, and she was able to get right into work. So, I mean, everybody just has to kind of figure out what path works for them and understand like saving money. It may not be in the cards, and you may not be able to save a whole lot at one time because life happens. Bills, bills come in, house, money, water, food, children. If you have children these days, like all of that, requires money, and it requires it when it needs it. But if you could put just a little bit off, that little can go a long way in the long run. And knowing when it's time to invest, when it's time to save, when it's time to deploy assets is really the main thing. We know we're talking about, but we are, which is just being financially literate, understanding what goes into everything, and understanding the details. That's the thing. On a surface level, is very just money is money. That's how it's taught in school, and that's how it's really kind of taught in college. You don't get the details unless you find courses or find electives that teach you, the details of money. And so for those people, they just have to look it up. Like I said, Investopedia. Game
That's a good resource. A good free resource too. Yeah.
free research, absolutely. All it takes is a Google search. Last thing before we wrap up, you know, in school, we talked about it. I'm big on, education system, trying to evolve to teach people and teach kids, you know, lessons that will translate to life. So, what do you think should be taught in school, about money? Like, what are things that you would want to see your children, if you had kids, learn in school for the next generation?
So for me, I'd want my kids to know like financial literacy. So just basically understanding how much you're making and then how much you're spending. I'd want you to be taught taxes, just so that because a lot of people don't learn taxes, and then you can the teach school tries to say like, oh, your parents should teach you that, but not everybody's parents understand or even pay attention to taxes. Some people don't even pay taxes, so then it's like, how am I supposed to learn from my parents if they don't even pay taxes? You know what I mean?
Right.
So you can't say just to push that off on your parents. I think that needs to be taught in school. What else? Investing. It's different from person to person. Not everybody needs to be investing in stocks. Not everybody needs to be investing in real estate. Not everybody needs to be, all that, starting a business on the side or whatever. It just depends on person to person and understanding what your personal goals are and how investing can help you get there. I think those are the three main things that should be put into the grade school curriculum.
Mhm.
But you know,
Yes, for me, I mean, because I took classes like statistics and calculus and all this, I I delved into a lot of the formulas that calculate like your interest, compound interest. Like you learn these formulas in school. So for me, I would like to see in math courses, more real world application and more explanation of how, like, okay, this formula here is how you, like the banks or whatever people who are involved in your house or your credit card, this is how they calculate your interest rates on either your house or your car or your credit cards, like those types of things, so people can understand, okay, if I invest this much, this is what the payout really is going to be. Because again, the misconception is that if I put in 4,000, I just have to pay off 4,000. If you have a certain interest rate, that 4,000 can be 8 or 12 or 16, depending on what type of interest rate you get. So I would just have more critical thinking and more real world application. Bring investors, bring financial planners, like have a
and bankers,
bankers, all those people, like you can hire those types of people onto staff. It creates jobs, and it also has a better educated youth. Also, for those who it may apply to, there's a government organization called Money Smart for young adults, for people who are 12 to 20 years old. So it's 8 modules, and it also teaches you financial literacy. So for those who don't have nothing to do for the summertime, that can be something that you can use your time for. Learn about money, because we're all gonna need it. It's not going away. I mean, hopefully not, and we're gonna have to know about it. So I would just like to see money management be like a vital course, like how they make us take PE or any type of freelance elective. Make money management be a course every year that you have to learn about. You just build on and build on and build on as you get older. That way, you don't have to deal with so much adults, or like so many adults being in debt or having to owe money or having to not be able to pay things. Because if you have people who, you know, are aware about money, you create less problems, create a more productive society, because people can freely spend because they have money in the bank, not to worry about little things, or they don't have to worry about having no peace of mind because they can't afford things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It just teaches you real world, like real life stuff. There's a lot of stuff that you learn in school that you probably aren't going to apply to your real life. So at least being able to add something into the curriculum that can help somebody. They say, oh, well, you'll learn it in college, but what about the people that don't go to college?
Sorry.
They never learn it, or they have to learn it the hard way. So it's just what the school system is right now. But
Yeah.
hope
We just want to see change.
that's all. I don't hate the school system. I just think that things need to be revamped a little bit.
Absolutely. But anyways, that's a wrap. Episode 7 of the 4Insight podcast. My boy Nick, good job, bro. Hell of an episode. Hell of an episode. Believe people learn. I know I learned, and
I learned some stuff for sure. Yeah.
facts. Do it for the culture. Catch us on YouTube, Spotify, all platforms streaming podcasts. Appreciate y'all.